Hi, it's Mayor Jeff Schielke on Friday, August 14th, and I'm here to give you the weekly update of things that are happening in our community. And I have a few things to talk about today. One issue or problem that we've faced in town over the last few days is specifically coming out of the Batavia Police Department. And the chiefs have been expressing to me their concerns that we're seeing about during nighttime patrols. There's been several incidents. One night last week we had 8 reported incidents of visitors to our town attempting to find open cars. And what they were doing is they were pulling into subdivisions, and one was on one side of the street and another was on the other, and somebody else was driving the car. And they would run up and down the streets and see any cars that were parked in the driveway to see if they were open. And if the car was open, they then proceeded to enter that car and help themselves to anything that they thought that it was usable to them or that they could resell. And in one unfortunate incident, they opened a car up, and there wasn't anything that was in the car that was interest, but there was a garage door opener, so they proceeded to open the garage and went in the garage and found that there was a car parked in there, that there was a way to get it started and get it out the door. And so we had a car stolen from us. And so the police specifically want me to strongly emphasize in this week's message that we are having a problem overnight during the nighttime hours with visitors to our town. We've got some suspicions as to who some of these folks are, and none of them seem to be checking out or coming out of Batavia, but we are actively in hot pursuit of trying to bring some arrests and closure to this. But it is an ongoing issue in Batavia and something that we really want to encourage you all. If you have the need to leave a car outside overnight, please lock the door. That's the message, I guess, at the end of the day, as we really do have some issues to deal with. The other thing that I want to share is that on Friday, this morning on Friday, I was alerted via the Kane County Health Department that Kane County's COVID rating is not as good as it should be, and we continued for the second week in a row to get ourselves into a situation where the state of Illinois is going to throw Kane County on the watch list because of the growth of corona-related reports that are coming out. Now, it's not a heavy-duty situation, but we are heading in the wrong direction. And so they want to re-emphasize that we ask that everybody, if you're out and about in the public, that you obviously obtain one of these masks and you put it on when you're out talking or whatever. We also want to stress that we continue to want to encourage people to socially distance. In other words, stay 5 to 6 feet apart from anybody you're around, unless you're totally sure that they're not potentially a carrier of corona. And thirdly, we want to encourage you not to gather where there's a large number of people all mingling together. Large parties, it seems like in investigations by the state, that seems to be one of the principal places where there is communication of these diseases. So again, those are the 3 issues we want you to think about. And again, specifically, please try to wear a mask. Our enforcement abilities we're not out here writing tickets. There's some great conversation going on about, is there a really a legal issue if we start writing tickets to people wearing masks? But we are asking for your cooperation because it does seem to be the healthy thing to do. And so I'll have more to talk about this in the near term, but that's the story for today. Another thing I want to talk about is some of our businesses that we have in our town. And I want to talk about Talitha Mueller, who is the new owner of the Batavia Popcorn Stand down on North Water Street at Houston. And she has done just a wondrous job, in my opinion, of really bringing back that business to a very high-profile rolling state. She's recently been the benefactor of an Eagle Scout project by Robert George Merrill, who has provided some flower pots and some improvements to the outside of the building. And I wrote a letter on his behalf to the Boy Scout Council encouraging them to allow him to do this as an Eagle Scout project, because given the fact that the popcorn stand in downtown Batavia is now in its 91-year run in our town, I think it certainly has become a high-profile kind of Batavia or tradition, which reinforces the whole opinion that Batavia does have some wonderful memories of places that people have talked and met and enjoyed themselves, and certainly that popcorn stand. And it's been a kind of a moving journey itself on both Batavia Avenue and on Water Street, and it's resided in 3 or 4 different locations over the years, but each one of them has been something that has been, people have been able to find it and use it. And I would encourage you to stop down, because Talitha has added some changes to the menu, and she's got some different flavored popcorn. And I think that she's really somebody that we should be very proud to have as part of our business community. I noted recently I had the opportunity to be out in Sycamore, Illinois, and I was driving down the main street there, and I turned the corner, and here was a brand new, I think it must be new, I'd never seen it before, red popcorn stand. Is now right off of Route 64 in Sycamore. And so I'm wondering if somebody came over to Batavia and borrowed the idea, although Sycamore is a pretty independent-minded town. I know from working with some of the city officials there that they certainly have a lot of history of their own, so I'm not going to say that it is a new one, but it certainly jumps out at you. It's just like the one in Batavia does. And so if you're over in Sycamore and you have a taste for popcorn, I'd encourage you. It's on the south side of Route 64, about midway through the business district, and it's on the side street. But once you turn the corner, that red building jumps out on you because it's kind of parked on the sidewalk and a little bit on the street, as I remember. So we've got that going. The other thing that I just want to talk about is that Batavia right at the moment has several businesses that are not yet here, but we are talking. We are doing building inspections. We are doing conversations about adding various features to buildings. And specifically, what people are talking about is doing things in either the entertainment business or the restaurant business. And so I am optimistic that in the next several months, we're going to have a couple of new restaurants opening in town. And we will be, I think, all that much better for it, because we really, I think, are getting a reputation of being a town that does have some interesting situations going on. The one thing that I would like to talk about before we close, though, this past week, on the 10th of August, on Monday afternoon, about 3:45 in the afternoon, as many of you know, Batavia, like the rest of the northeast part of the state of Illinois, was struck by this tremendous line of thunderstorms that rolled through and caused a lot of concerns about tornadoes. And I guess the Weather Bureau has confirmed that they think that there were 3 or 4 tornadoes that actually did touch the ground. There was thousands, if not millions of dollars done to utility systems, specifically in the ComEd system. City of Batavia had some electrical outages ourselves, and our whole public works, and specifically our electric utility and our street department and our water department, really rose to the occasion, and we got most people back in power within a couple hours in many instances. Some had to wait a little bit longer. And we had some Commonwealth Edison customers on the fringes of our town that I'm told waited probably more time than what the Batavia inside the city customers waited. But I believe everybody is back on with electricity now. But the storm had a very interesting reaction when it came to Batavia. From appearances, it looks like there was some kind of a wind shear element to this thing that came into Batavia, and looks like it went in the field just behind the West Side Fire Station. And then it rolled through there and got over into Engstrom Park, and then it got into the streets to the immediate east of Engstrom Park, Ellen Lane, Roberts Lane, Evergreen Drive, and then got into McKinley and Walnut. At the intersection of McKinley and Walnut specifically, there was a lot of damage done both to property and to trees and electrical systems. We had a house on Walnut Street that took a tree into the roof, did some serious damage. And then we had a unique situation at Union and Batavia Avenue by the entrance to the Lincoln Court Apartments. We had a very large tree limb come down, and somehow when it came down, it inserted itself in between a variety of wires on the pole that was nearby it, And so it was both electric and public works and cable TV and all kinds of different stuff was up there. So we had to go over and deal with that. That was quite a significant situation. Then the tornado, or not the tornado, but the heavy wind shear jumped the Fox River and hit down on South Van Buren Street, where we had another pretty good tree into a house in the 400 block of South Van Buren. And then it ended up going over a little bit on Prairie, and then it seemed to go up the hill on Pine Street, and we had quite a bit of tree and some minor building damage there before it finally left our town and headed over into Fermilab territory. So we didn't see any specific sightings of a tornado, but we certainly had a wind event, and that wasn't limited to just that area. There were trees and branches down throughout the town. As a result of that, the City Council on Tuesday night authorized a special additional citywide brush pickup, because many of you now have brush piled up on your parkways, and that will start this coming Monday on August 17th, and they're going to drive the whole city one time. And if you've got some brush in your backyard and you haven't put it out yet or whatever, please do so over the weekend, so that this coming Monday when we do the special one, which is probably going to cost us in excess of $30,000 to have this done, but we think it needs to be done because of given the amount of damage that we've dealt with here. As my history program today, because we had this kind of weather event in town, I have people talk about this on occasion, and so I went and dug into my files and the files of the city, and I am going to show some pictures that happened in Batavia. And the date of this, because is April 21st, 1967. And on that day, it was a Friday afternoon, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and Batavia High School had just been opened up for the first year, and the Batavia High School baseball team was out in the field doing some practice, and the coach saw this rather rough cloud, and so he instructed all the players to come off the field and go into what was the first edition of the Batavia High School gym, which has now been expanded several times over the last few years. But when the players got inside the gym, the phenomenal wind element hit the wall and bent it in. The west wall of the high school gym was a sheet of metal, and it bent it about 3/4 of an inch or more, and kind of disfigured it. And then they heard some skylights in the gym, and the wind sucked the skylights right out of the roof and dropped the glass into the floor of the gym. It was quite a scene. But then we find out that before it got to Batavia High School, out on Partridge Lane off of Nelson's Lake Road, it hit the Walter Lamberton home, I believe it was. And this is a picture of the damage. You can see it tore down part of a brick wall, tore off part of the roof, certainly tore off the garage, and there's extensive damage to this home as a result of this event. And then after it hit the high school, it jumped down Wilson Street, and this is an interesting picture of the city utility pole on that afternoon after it got bent over and cracked in half, and you can see the wires held, but you can see the pole is now L-shaped in this picture. And this took our city electrical crew, this has been 53 years ago now, quite a bit of time to get this back into shape. And then a more interesting picture we have is this is the back end of the Furnace Electric Plant, which used to stand at the corner of Van Noordtreek and McKee Street. And this shows the back end of the plant, and as you can see, if you look closely at the picture, there's been roofs torn off a part of the factory, there's all kinds of debris, there's been windows broken, and so this was quite an event. And then like the one we just went through, after it hit the furnace property, it kind of went a little bit upward, and it did quite a bit of damage in a 400 block of, I guess not the 400, the 300 block of North Jefferson Street, and over on Lincoln Street. It broke a bunch of trees over, and I believe maybe a window or two got broke. Then it jumped the Fox River, and it ended up doing quite a bit of additional damage over in the 800 block of North Washington Avenue. And there was several, I think at least one porch got knocked off of a house. There were several trees that collapsed. And so these are some of the bigger weather events that we've experienced in Batavia, but because that happened this week, I thought it would be interesting to show you. But I had the opportunity at a point to take a trip out to the Freeport, Belvedere, Rockford area, and in a recent visit, I was having a very good time. I stopped at Belvedere High School. And on April 21st, 1967, which was the same day Batavia got hit, and which Oak Lawn and hometown down on the southwest side of the city got really terrible damage and some fatalities down there, Belvedere High School and parts of the southeast, I guess it would be the southeast corner of Belvedere, got hit real bad by the tornado. And it hit the high school particularly, and they were loading students onto buses. And several of the buses got picked up and turned over, and they had a number of fatalities. And so as a result of this terrible incident in Belvedere, they've erected this monument of a tornado, and on the spires of the tornado, they list the names of everybody in Belvedere who was killed that day, along with their ages. And this is right off of Route 20 as you're coming into Belvedere from the east going west. And if you're out there, I would invite you to stop and see it. It's right next to the street, and it shows it. This is another picture of it I took showing the Performing Arts Center that they've now built onto Belvedere High School. And this shows they've got some benches around it, and it shows the overall appearance of the tornado sculpture and the names on the rings of the tornado. So. We are not alone when tornadoes and bad weather hits. The thing I want to end with is that what happened on Monday was textbook as far as our alerting system goes. Our policy here under Fire Chief Randy Dykey and our ESDA Director Mark Davis is that we don't blow the tornado alert siren unless we are somewhat concerned that there could be something really going to happen. And as those of you who were in town on Monday know, we did blow the siren, and we did ask people to head to the basements, and it sounds like most people did that I'm hearing from. And they all took cover for a while. And the other nice thing about the tornado situations nowadays is that most of the main Chicago TV networks now break into programming, and they bring their weather people on, and they give moment-by-moment reports using Doppler radar images as to where these severe storms are and who they have hit and where they're going to hit next. And so I guess if one happens again, I'd encourage you to, number one, if the sirens blow, please take cover. And if you can, get yourself access to a Chicago television, and they will probably 2, 5, 7, and 9, I believe, are all participating in this weather alert thing where they bring on their weather crews and they try to give you a moment-by-moment description of what's happening so that you're not sitting there for 2 or 3 hours wondering if it has passed. So that's, I think, a step in progress for the Chicagoland region that we now do this. Fortunately, over this past issue, we did not have anybody injured. I'm told I had some insurance adjusters come in here and say we had thousands of dollars of damage done to roofs and buildings and outbuildings and whatever in Batavia as a result of the storm. So it was a moment to remember. Hopefully this will be one we won't repeat in the near term, but I just wanted to give you a report as to what our damage was, and our police and our fire and our public works all rose to the occasion and responded and helped out the best they could with all the folks that were in trouble by it. So I want to take my hat off to our crews. I think they did a fabulous job, and I just want to say that as I travel around the region and I go to places like Belvedere, there's beautiful things happening in those towns, beautiful people around, and it's nice areas to be around and be near. And we've got a lot of nice things happening around us, and we want to do everything we can to protect those and look after them. And so today, as I get ready to close, I just want to thank everybody for your continued interest in this program. It's quite honestly, it's provided a lot more interest than I ever thought, and I will give a lot of credit to Griffin Price, who's with our city public relations arena, and he's the one that does most of the filming and the editing. So when I stumble or stutter or or mispronounce something, he can generally correct my mistake before it gets published on the computer. Because as I say, I know I have, I'll call it my whole fan club that's out there that sits there and hangs on every one of my words and tries to analyze them by sending them a message or something. So anyway, again, to my friends and to our members of the community, thanks for looking in, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week.